before COVID was ever a thing, I participated in this tournament hosted by the International Taekwondo Federation and ended up winning this belt because of it. Now, for those of you that don't know, there's 3 parts of Taekwondo tournaments. There's sparring, patterns, and special techniques, like flying kicks or jumping kicks. Basically, special techniques, or put simply, it's just basically a competition of who can jump and kick the highest. And I consider special techniques to be the strong point of the 3, because let me tell you, I cannot spar even if my life depended on it. I just can't. Anyways, as it turns out, my younger brother does Taekwondo too. Now, he's a higher belt than me, so most of the time he's helping me with stuff, but I am always asked to help with his kicks. Always his side kicks. And because I'm a nice sister, I usually do help him. And it starts out fine. I nicely point out the mistakes he's making, and he corrects them too. Eventually, though, somewhere in the middle, my older sister power runs out, and somehow I'm the one getting kicked instead of the bag. Long story short, it always ends up with the 2 of us sitting in our rooms, grounded, being asked to reflect on our actions. If you have younger siblings, you can probably relate. So anyway, as I was reflecting one day, I decided I'd had enough. I wanted to build something that could help my brother with his sidekicks for me. Anyway, did a little bit of research and found that AI could help do that. Now, before I actually get into the technicalities of how the trainer actually works, I wanted to just go over how AI works and how it plays into my Taekwondo trainer. So obviously you guys have heard of it, artificial intelligence, it's used everywhere. Think about companies like YouTube and TikTok. They use AI algorithms to generate a list of videos to show you next. And I'd say these companies use AI pretty effectively. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm scrolling through my For You page for hours. It's actually starting to become a problem now. But to better understand AI, think back to when you first learned how to ride a bike. Recall that feeling of being overwhelmed with all the things that you needed to keep in mind to stay in control. There were rules for when, how, what speed to turn the pedals at, what to do with your body parts to stay balanced, observing your surroundings, the types of roads you're on, the weather, the obstacles, whether cars coming at you, a pedestrian, a bend in the road, all of these things that you had to keep in mind just to stay upright. Now, you may think that you weren't actually consciously thinking of these things. And you're right, you weren't actually consciously thinking of staying balanced, but your brain does a really good job of observing things that are much more than just what you're consciously aware of. It can identify repetitive patterns and repetitive behaviors as well to help you stay upright when you're riding your bike. You really don't need to keep track of every behavior or contextual input, because if you consciously did that, you wouldn't be able to respond in time to things like a car coming your way. So that's really all AI is. It's just a really good student that learns over time how behaviors and contextual inputs result in progress towards a goal. So in your case with the bike, you did that by falling over and over and scraping your knees over and over. But in the case of AI, it's done by running millions and millions of simulations. But AI is just a blanket term. It's used to describe a range of underlying technologies that are combined together to achieve this cognitive-like computer analysis level. There's a lot of buckets, but there's 6 main ones. So to start off, you've got machine learning, which is maybe the most common. It's basically computer algorithms that can improve automatically through experience and data. And this is where the YouTube and TikTok's algorithms would fit in perfectly. Next up, you've got NLP, or natural language processing, which is basically concerned with the interactions between computers and human languages. So examples like spell check or Grammarly fit in perfectly. Next, you've got expert systems, which are used to simulate the judgment and behavior of humans. So examples like voice assistants like Siri and Alexa. And then you've got computer vision, which enables digital devices like face detectors and QR code scanners to identify and process images and objects in images and videos, just like humans do. And then you've got speech recognition, or speech to text. It's basically the ability for a machine to identify words spoken aloud and convert them into readable text, or even just the ability to understand what you're saying. So again, you can think back to Amazon's Alexa or Google Home. Their ability to understand what you're saying is because of the speech recognition algorithms built into it. And finally, you've got robotics, which is, well, robotics. And you can go even further in depth in each of these buckets as well, but we're just going to stop there. So the Taekwondo trainer that I made uses pose estimation, which just so happens to fall under the computer vision category. It tracks an object's location on the screen and analyzes the human posture, which is the very basis of how the Taekwondo trainer works. And there's 3 different types of human pose estimation. So first off, you've got skeleton-based model, which basically just looks at your key joints. So things like your elbow, your shoulder, your knees, things like that. Next up, you've got the contour-based model, which basically looks at a person's silhouette. So the length of your arms, the width of your arms, torso, just to name a few. And finally, you've got volume-based model, which I think is the coolest because it actually looks at your muscle structure, which is super cool. Anyway, so the computer can do all this. It can create these models. It can do that by using key points. It recognizes these key points on your bodies. And for humans, these key points represent major joints like elbows, knees, shoulders, as I mentioned before. Now, for the trainer that I made, the key points help determine the maximum and minimum angles when the user is kicking. So the maximum angle is the highest the user can kick, and the minimum would be just the resting stage. And from there, when you've reached the maximum angle, your side kick would be counted by the trainer. Now, this is to ensure that you're always kicking at your full potential and you're not slacking off. So when it's all put together, it looks a little something like this. Now you can see when I kick, as long as I hit my maximum potential, it'll only count it if I hit all the way. Now this was a little funky when I first tested it out, but okay, there we go. So it counts it on the side over there. Now this trainer is just an example of what can be built using AI algorithms. And with the future of AI being so bright, the sky's the limit. The power AI harnesses is really, really incredible and truly has the power to change every aspect of our life. And the beauty of that is that it can be leveraged by you too, just by starting now. By building projects and dipping your toes in this ocean of AI, you too can get your foot in the door. No matter how big or small the project you make, just get started. You don't have to be the greatest coder or an expert in AI. I'm certainly not. I suck at coding, still do, but you just need to get started. So remember, you don't have to be great to start, but you do need to start to be great. Thank you.
That was really, really impressive. I really like your AI that you made, and I think it's really impressive. And I can see that everyone in the chat here, everyone seems to think it's an incredible, awesome presentation. That was amazing. Someone said intense clapping, so I guess they enjoyed it a lot. If you guys have any questions about that presentation, you can feel free to ask them now. We'll have a short question period for you guys in case you have any doubts, any questions, or anything you want to ask. So I guess we'll just wait it out and see. Okay, so we have Ishita Rajan is asking to everyone, or to you, I guess, how would you recommend starting coding?
Honestly, I'd say I know a lot of people start off, or with AI, they start off with the math. To be honest, the math just flies past my head. I don't understand the math. So I'd say probably projects. Just start off with like little, small, tiny projects and build your way from there. I think that's the best way to start.
Great answer. Does anyone else here, this is kind of like a side question, but does anyone else here do any sort of like combat sports or any sort of Taekwondo or anything? How long have you been learning Taekwondo for?
I've been doing it for 4 years, so not too long.
4 years. I mean, that's a pretty long time in many people's eyes. It seems as though we have no one else with questions though. Oh, well, Ishita actually says, yep, she has a red belt in Taekwondo. Oh, that's really cool. Yep, Abrar says that he also does karate. And we have another question from Angelina. And she's asking, what resources did you use to build your software and how long did it take for you to make it?
Yeah, so I built it on PyCharm, so I used Python, and it took me, I'd say maybe a month to make, but that's just because I'm not a great coder. So honestly, it wouldn't take that long. I just tried to learn how to code in the process, so it took me a little bit longer, but yeah.
Great. And if anyone else has any questions? Seemingly no. Angelina says thank you for the response. I don't think anyone else has any questions, however. Oh, no, I was wrong. Aliza is asking, what are the best ways to publish an AI project?
What do you mean by publish?
Aliza, what do you mean by publish? Like share it with other people.
I'd say, making articles and videos about it is a really great way. GitHub, yeah, of course, GitHub is really great. But yeah.
Aliza, if you've never heard of GitHub, you should check it out. I'm pretty sure it's a free service, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot. But with that, I think we can come to an end of this presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to leave it in the chat, and we'll see if we can get you a response. But with that, I think we'll end the speaker presentation. Once again, thank you so much, Mansi, for the amazing presentation. Everyone, let's show her some love in the chat. Let's give her some reactions. I think that was a really interesting presentation. So let's all show her some love.